This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
And we're glad to have you here with us alongside John Hicks. I'm Heather Branch, here to ask for his insight on the things you can be working on now as you get closer to retirement. And retirementsolutionradio.com is where you can start your own conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital. We also have links posted in the show notes, or again, find us at retirementsolutionradio.com. Every now and then, I do like to poke the bear, if I do say so myself.
Uh-oh.
I want to ask you about this story about taxes and the people who are paying them. More importantly, the people that are not paying them, and how the government needs to take a good long look in the mirror. As I said, bear poking. In 2022, as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, apparently they reserved $80 billion to go to the IRS over 10 years period of time to go after tax cheaters. Hey.
Absolutely. They called them that too.
Yeah.
Tax cheats.
Tax cheats.
Tax cheats. You're cheating.
We're coming for you.
You're taking money from the federal government.
How dare you? We see you. We're coming to get you. And President Biden recently said that it has resulted in $1 billion collected in back taxes.
Yep.
Apparently, they didn't have to go too far to find that $1 billion, John.
A few cubicles away, it appears. A few cubicles away is where it actually appears, Heather.
An IRS audit found nearly 150,000 IRS employees failed to pay their taxes, and the amount owed was $1.5 billion, John.
Wow. Think about that. So all the tax cheats, or at least not all
of them, but
many of the tax cheats were actually in the same office tasked with finding all the tax cheats. This is what I said. It's like, can you imagine going through that list and just standing up in your cubicle and going, Ted, is there anything you want to tell me? Maybe you haven't paid taxes in the last 5 or 6 years, maybe? I mean, you are an IRS agent. Do you not feel like you should have done that? Well, tell me what's going on. And of course, about I don't know what statistically what percentage that is.
Right.
But guys, that's a big deal. This is probably one of the biggest issues I have. This is why no matter what anyone thinks about modern politics, I kind of hate it all.
Yeah.
I really am a Reagan Republican through and through. The guy was basically raised and his entire life was a Democrat. And he just simply said, hey, listen, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. It left me. And one of the biggest reasons is what we're about to talk about right now. It has nothing to do with just taxation. It's how do we run this nation? How do we run this country? Do we need the government to do all these things? Or are these things that we could do on our own with more personal and fiscal responsibility, fix the issues and not have to have all this governmental waste? But I have to read this. I'm going to read this verbatim.
Okay.
From the article that we got it from, because this is actually, the truth is crazier than fiction. So here it says right now, IRS employees and contractors owe a collective $50 million in back taxes, a new audit from the Treasury Department's Inspector General found. Now, guys, that's the starting point. Now, more than 50 of these delinquent employees have remained employed by the IRS for 5 years or more. And all told, now that's just the IRS, about $50 million they haven't paid and they're supposed to. Now, here's a big one. Because someone could say, well, John, maybe just someone needs to shake up the IRS. I'm not going to go that far. Here's the big one to me, guys. 150,000 federal employees failed to pay the appropriate amount of taxes, owing a combined $1.5 billion. I'm going to say it again. $1.5 billion. So what did Biden say that they found very quickly? We found $1 billion. Yeah, it's the government employees.
Right.
The government employees are the tax cheats. Now, don't get all hung up and call into the show and say, I'm a government employee and I take offense to that. No. That's not where I'm going with this.
Right.
The point is that whenever any of these groups go on these witch hunts and they're saying all these things, the tax code is very, very, very complex. Anyone could overpay or underpay in any given year just on circumstance. It's difficult. CPAs don't get it right 100% of the time. They're not even claiming to try. They're going to do the best they can with the information they have based on current tax laws. And by the way, guys, tax laws change about every single year. Even if it's a minutia thing, but they do cost of living adjustments, they do threshold tests based on how much money you make. It gives you some rights to do some deductions and other rights to not do others. It is hyper complex. But when we look at it, federal employees, and this is just the first audit. This wasn't like they're going through and finding any cheaters. These are just people that haven't paid what they are supposed to.
Right.
$1.5 billion. Now, don't get hung up in the fact that someone is cheating the system. The point is, it is unbelievably complex, and you don't have to cheat or not pay your taxes to pay less. That is probably the biggest thing that I can express to anyone in this country.
Yeah.
The way that this country operates is pretty simple. They give us all the rules. Now, they're convoluted, they're difficult, they're complex. It's hard to enact them correctly. But the truth is, the rules are all out there. It's about 78,000 pages of tax code that spell all this out. I have yet to talk to one single CPA that has read the entire tax code. Never once.
Right.
I don't know that I ever will find
Why
one.
would they?
By the time,
as you said, the laws change every year. By the time they get done reading it, it's going to be different again.
that is 100% the whole point. So it is pointless to try to figure that out. That's why in our office, we focus on two major components of tax design.
Okay.
Number one, how can I pay the least amount of taxes this year legally, honestly, and ethically so that I can put more money away?
Yeah.
And then number two, how can I pay the least amount of taxes over time when I'm retired? Because that is when the tax bite is going to be the strongest, the hardest, the most vicious. Is going to be like having your leg being attacked by a rabid wolf is what it's going to feel like if we haven't prepared for that. So we have to understand when that tax bite happens, we don't want to rip off a limb. And that's what I want everyone to understand. If you have saved $600,000, $800,000, $2.5 million, the other day, a gentleman somehow had done an incredible job. He had also had a lot of privately held stock that had done exceedingly well. He had over $20 million in tax deferred accounts. Wow. That is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it is also an unbelievable tax nightmare down the road, because those dollars at this point have all kind of been untaxed. So he will have taxes due on $20 million in retirement. So there are a whole bunch of issues. Yeah. So his RMDs are going to be crazy, which means he's always going to be in the highest marginal tax bracket. And you could look at that and say, well, he's got $20 million, John. So boo-hoo, go cry me a river. Well, think about it, guys. He doesn't have $20 million. When you look at it and the state he lives in and everything else, he's got about $10 million. The government's going to end up with about half of that money. Now, think about that for a second. So this is why people think about cheating the government. No, you don't have to cheat them. You just have to know the correct ways. How do we dismantle some of those tax deferred accounts to get the money into tax-free areas? How do we use proper deductions that are not only legal, but they're unbelievably great? People like Trump has used them in the past when you're talking about real estate. Jeff Bezos, who is the CEO, or I guess former CEO, is certainly the chairman and founder of Amazon, did not pay any taxes for 3 out of 7 years in a row. The guy makes $20 billion a year. He paid no taxes.
Wow.
For 3 out of 7 years or something like that.
Wow.
So the point is, it's not one side of the spectrum versus another. It's not that anyone's hiding or trying to be malicious from taxation. They understand the shrewd rules that are built in the system for smart people to find and to truly exploit. That is not a bad word. Exploit just means you're using the rules to your advantage to better yourself. Period. Without hurting others. Okay. Now, the government would say, and this is exactly what they tried to run on this, we need all these extra IRS people. They tried to run on the thing was, there's these tax cheats. They're not paying their fair share. But I feel pretty confident that the rules that I've seen that Bezos used, not only did he use them accurately, he used them several times in a row.
Right.
And there was no issue. The IRS was like, all right, you did it right. Good for you. That's the point, guys. So when we're looking at these things, when we're looking at where is the government going to come up with the money, that is the big problem. They're not going to be able to come up with it with the current tax code.
Right.
They're going to have to try to take more money from us in the future. And if we give them the opportunity, to try to take more from us, guess what they're going to do? They're going to take more from us. As a matter of fact, one of the campaign things that just came out, one of the very first things that's come out from the Harris campaign is that they are going to find a way to raise more tax revenue simply by having a capital gains tax on unrealized capital gains. Guys, this is an abomination. This means that if you have a business and that business may be valued at $100 million, you may have to pay gains on a business that you did not yet sell. You don't have money from that on an annual basis. If you own a piece of real estate at the lake, if you own another asset and it has grown in value, that is an unrealized capital gain. This may actually have to make you pay 10 to 25% annually.
So you don't, it's not like earned income. It's just
because you didn't
assets.
you didn't sell anything. You have no income coming in. You just have an asset that grew. Or let's take a perfect case example. Let's say that you own $100,000 of General Electric stock. You've had it in your family for years.
Yeah.
You have $100,000 of GE stock and it goes up 10% this upcoming year. That is a $10,000 unrealized gain. Now, right now, if you don't sell that stock, there's no tax. One day when you do sell it, you may pay a tax on that extra $10,000. This is not the first time that this has been proposed, guys. This has been proposed many times over the past 20 years, but this is one of the very first things that this campaign is coming out and saying they want to stand for, to tell the big wigs, the billionaires out there, that they need to pay their fair share so unrealized capital gains could be affected. Now, why is that a big deal? Because it's not the bigwigs that it hurts.
Right.
It's those of us that we may have a second home, or we may have a house that we bought for our kids and they live in because they're special needs. Those are potentially unrealized capital gains that could potentially be taxed.
Wow.
And this is not to jump on one political side versus another, but this is how dire the tax structure is for our current nation. We don't have enough money. We have 11,340 people turning 65 every single day in this country. That number is going to stay that way for the next 3 years until 2027. In 2027, we won't have quite as many. These are people that need and deserve and are going to be afforded the opportunity to have Medicare and Social Security, the majority of them.
Right.
And we don't have the money to pay for it. So we're going to have to find a way to be shrewd with our tax structure. Do not dodge the tax man. Plan strategically, plan wisely, and understand we may pay purposefully a little bit more today so that we don't have to pay nearly as much in the future, or if it goes to the next generation, or if it provides for a spouse, surviving spouse, or anything like that. That is of utmost important. But I promise you one thing, regardless of who wins the election, regardless of what they do with capital gains rates, regardless of any stuff that we could hear, the government's broke. They need more money. And if you do not have your own game plan for your taxes, the government will have one for you. I would suggest you call and get a second opinion from our office. If you have saved $500,000 or more, but more importantly, if you have IRAs worth millions of dollars and you are not doing tax planning, if you're an investment firm or you do not have a CPA that understands that kind of math, guys, do yourself a huge favor and just talk to a skilled fiduciary that understands that. The numbers are staggering on what you can potentially save. Not just hundreds of thousands for you while you're alive, but potentially millions for your heirs. It's a big deal. Don't waste any more time. Every second we delay, the government's one step closer of finding a way to take it away from us.
Like John was saying, don't waste any more time. We can get to work on this conversation with and for you as soon as right now. Go to retirementsolutionradio.com, and that's where you can begin the conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital. We also have links posted in the show notes, or again, it's retirementsolutionradio.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Inc. is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. It does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital. National license number 1882794.